Oh, I've got a good one here for you. Do you like high tank, high damage, high levels of sustain, both active and passive, not one, but two invulnerabilities on low cooldown, as well as ailment cleansing, having high momentum, especially if you have some cooldown reduction, which also increases your primary source of nuke, so that's very comfy, while having multiple ways of building this particular creation, which technically allows you to also cycle start it and build into the high-end version, which is what I'm currently working on. It is a work in progress. I have my high-end shopping list down below, but more about that later. If you do check out the time codes below and such, by all means, pop off. I will go into great detail about why I have done certain things, as this is indeed a project, my final project of the cycle, most likely. So hopefully you will enjoy it. But before I go any further, welcome back, my pathological pals. The name is Wolf, and this is by far one of my top 3 favorite builds in Last Epoch to date. It is, of course, the Crowstorm Beastmaster, allowing yourself to get massive amounts of buffs with melee, as well as applying wonderful debuffs, while your crows kind of act like long-distance artillery, while also having giant nukes you can send in not one but 2 different ways, a manual one and a pseudo-automatic one. I'm going to explain the build. I'm going to go a little bit into depth about how you could build it differently, but mostly I will just address the way I am currently building it, because it requires a brand new unique that has made it possible in 1.1. So let's get into it. So with the Beastmaster changes and getting more regen, the low-life version of this build had a little bit of a downside now. However, what if we, instead of try to avoid the regen, embraced it? And that's where the Vessel of Strife comes in. Health regen also applies to Ward, which is very, very powerful. So let's get into the skills before we dive into the gearing, because in the skills you will also see that we are embracing some of that sustain that we would otherwise not have, because we would try to stay at low life. But now we want to be at high life, and we can do so. Swipe. This is a very powerful, potent 2-second cooldown move, which can be reduced with cooldown reduction, which allows us to spam Primal Resonance, which means the Crowstorm comes down every single time we hit somebody with the swipe skill, which is very, very good, because Crowstorm is the most powerful move in this particular build. On top of that, we have a kill threshold on our swipe, which is very nice for bosses, and we have a bunch of self-buffs, which are very comfy, but also buffing our health regen, which then, of course, buffs our ward generation. Now, this is incredible because we get both health regen and ward regen at the same time. So we are having 2 buckets of sustain fill up at the same time, giving us incredible survivability as long as we don't get one-shot. And we have a lot of DR, so getting one-shot is very difficult. What isn't very difficult is Tempest Strike. It is pretty much our right-click button. This is very important because it will allow us to buff ourselves, empower our crows, but also get infinite mana and trigger things like Warm Shelter, which essentially, or not trigger Warm Shelter, I mean trigger the Frigid Tempest, which allows us to cool things, freeze things, and do some cold damage ourselves. More attack speed, mana cost, so it is free and generates infinite mana as a result of Resurgence of the Land. But more importantly, we have the Gladiator of Lagon buff, which buffs ourselves and our minions as we get more stacks through melee hits, and that buff is then doubled because we have more than 50 intelligence, since we are also stacking intelligence with Scheme of the Architect. It's very synergistic, very satisfying. Speaking of things that are satisfying, we have the summoned Storm Crows. These are our artillery. We are the spotter. We are the melee spotter. These are our mortars and artillery pieces. We are converting to cold, not just because of the freeze bonus, but also because of the massive damage bonuses we get from this. More about that during the Warcry section. We're also picking up some base crit because we are hit-based. And then we are maxing out Huntsman. As you can see, melee hits have 20% chance to grant active Storm Crows more damage that can stack, so having a lot of attack speed is very important. We also have incredible shred scaling, so that's going to be phenomenal, especially against single target, obviously. And then we have some more damage multipliers here as well for every Storm Crow that is active. Very, very potent. We have Fury Leap for convenience, quality of life, and buffs. As you can see, we have the Ailment Cleanse, we have healing for ourselves and our minions. That normally would be a problem, but now we want to stay at high health, obviously, because that's just comfortable. We have some Frenzy, we have some global spell damage for ourselves and our minions. And then we have some cooldown reduction and immunity, right? This is very powerful. You can cheese a lot of things with that. These points right here are kind of free. If you want to pick up Lagon's Wrath, you can do that. If you want to pick up Regain Stamina, you can do that. Although we pick up cooldown reduction already, and it is fine without. I find myself never having enough time to actually reset this and actually benefit from it, because the cooldown reduction is going to count this down so very fast to begin with by itself. So I like a little bit of pull action, a little bit of mana, reduction right here for convenience sake in area, but you could possibly also just rip out these things and go with, Lagon's Wrath. It is very flexible that way. Personal preference. As long as you have the immunity and the battle boom and stack all of that maxed, you're going to be fine. War Cry is another big reason we want to go cold, because we have Jormung's Wrath into Frostclaw, 250 damage. Incredible. While also having 100% crit chance. And then another 100% crit chance. So we're getting 200% crit chance. We have a little bit of higher uptime as a result of Ferocity, which is just quality of life. We're picking up Ailment Cleanse. We are picking up Invulnerability, which is very, very good. Now we have 2 points right here that normally would be travel points to try to get Shallow Breath. But as you can see, Warcry now has a cooldown of 5 seconds, and the best thing about this is this cooldown can be affected by other sources of cooldown reduction. So if you can get this below 4 seconds, you will have pretty much permanent uptime on your Battle Cry as well as your Frostclaw, which is kind of what you're aiming for convenience sake. And then we have 2 points left in this particular build, so you could theoretically go with a Pull if that's what you want. That's very comfy. Or you can go with some Debilitating Shout, because we don't really have a good source of frailty on this particular build. So getting a little bit of frailty is very nice. Although in a super, super, super high-end build with multiple LP items, you could get frailty on a piece of gear, and then you don't have to spec this. And then you're probably better off going with Apprehend. You don't want to pick up Frigid Breath, because that only works if the enemies were frozen by Warcry, which is not what's happening for us. So keep that in mind, because we can't freeze, right? Shallow Breath. In the passive sections, things get a little bit interesting because, well, the passives have changed, right? For the Beastmaster specifically. So let us start at the beginning. We are a strength stacker, so we want to pick up as much strength as we can. We have a lot of scaling with health and health regen, and we don't have to avoid any kind of healing mechanics. So we're picking up Hunter Restoration. We're also picking up Primal Medicine, so we can pick up Ancient Coal, which is more effective in my opinion than Gift of the Wilderness. And then we're picking up 5 points of Cornered Beast, which now has a persistent effect, which is very, very nice. So even if you're back at full health, you still have that persistent effect if it procced in the last 5 seconds, which is very, very good. For the Druid section, we are picking up Chitinous Plating for some armor bonuses, but more importantly, the stats, because we are a stat stacker. Strength turns into intellect, very obvious. And then Beastmaster is a wonderful thing. We have a little bit of wiggle room, but I think this is my current second or third draft on this, and I'm very happy with it. We're picking up Strength. We're picking up the melee attack speed, because that allows us to buff ourselves and buff our minions more consistently. The faster we attack, the better. We're picking up 4 seconds of Boar Heart. Very nice. 5 out of 5 Call of the Pack. We're picking up 8 out of 8 the Chase, because our minions are casting with cast speed, not attack speed. Very important, because they're shooting Lightning Blast, right? And that's a cast move, which also scales with intellect, by the way. People don't seem to remember that. On top of that, just some nice companion revive speed, but it's mostly there for the cast speed. You could cut some stuff here if you would really want to. It is not too bad, and you can put it elsewhere, maybe into more points on Life of the Wilderness, or maybe even some druidic stuff, because there is some cold nodes here that are good. It is a consideration I am still working on. A big change here is the natural fortitude. Look at that. Strength, health regen for companions, and then the point bonus. And we are stacking strength. We are getting a tremendous amount of health scaling here, which also turns into a tremendous amount of ward scaling, in addition to getting the incredible health scaling. This is a powerful node, 8 out of 8 mandatory. We have the Porcine Constitution, which was shifted to be behind the Beastmaster lock. We are Beastmaster, so we can benefit from it. And as you can see, massive amounts of health regen and damage reduction. This speaks for itself. It's perfect for us. We are picking up at least 1 point in Life of the Wilderness to enable the endurance. Also applies to companions. This is very, very important, because we do pick up 60 endurance. So that allows us to keep ourselves alive, but also our minions. We're picking up Cry of the Lynx for the crit benefits we get from this. 10 out of 10 Viper Fangs. The poison is not important. The 50% attack speed is, which is why we're not picking up the Rattlesnake follow-up node. But we are picking up the +1 companion, mandatory. We're picking up the Serrated Claws. We are a crit build. This is both crit multi and companion crit for us, while having the aspect of the Lynx giving us additional crit multi on top of that. So let's pop off. And then we're picking up 1 point in Critical Bite for the active level of Sustain. But more importantly, we're picking up 10 points of Ancient Might for 10 Strength, which also gives us 10 Intellect, obviously. And then we're picking up some Primal Aspect buffs. But yes, you could cut a point here. You could cut a couple of points here, which allow you to maybe wiggle around maybe Hawks, getting a couple of points in Hawks, which will give us 4 seconds of haste, which is something that I might be contemplating for monolith farming. But otherwise, for bossing, I definitely think that this is probably one of the better setups. Although there is something to be considered about river spirits as well, if you're feeling particularly frisky. But yes, those are the passives as they stand right now. They are open to change. I am still working on it. The Beastmaster Crowstorm has a multitude of ways of building it, but if you want to build a stat stacker variant with a shield, there are 3 primary ways. The early cycle version, which requires you to have the cleaver as well as the Arthur's Legacy, and then you can just stack health and strength and you'll be good to go. That's very good for early stages. If you want to survive really well in the mid game, you may want to contemplate a low life version, which requires the same legendaries of Arthur as well as cleaver, but requires an exsanguinate, the boots of the living, and possibly a glove with the experimental ward mod, which is a lot easier to do than what I have right here, but we are looking at a high-end, aspirational version, which is the hybrid EHP, requiring the Vessel of Strife, which only exclusively drops from J4 on tier 4, which is very, very difficult to get. But yes, we are currently looking at blessings as well. Health, all res, endurance for ourselves and our minions, because we do have that passive point. We have a cold build, so shred cold is always good. We are a health regen build, because health regen also gives us more ward and more sustain. So this is more EHP, but also more sustain at the same time. Very, very potent. And large idol drop rate is recommended to grab as well. The reason why is because our idols are kind of spicy. We need not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 crit avoidance. Normally people take the blessing here, but this allows us to not only make ourselves crit immune, but also our minions. And crows are they're known to be a little weak in terms of the survivability side of things. They have been buffed, and they are a lot more sturdy now, but I still like to avoid getting them critted, which allows them to survive much, much better. Although this particular build makes them much more tankier than we've ever seen them, even if they weren't buffed. So it's all good. On top of that, we are just picking up health. So if you need resistances, you can replace any of these 1x2s if you need to. But otherwise, try to get crit immune. That's the primary thing you want to do with your idols. Now we have caught the blessings, we have caught the idols. We have the mandatory unique right here, the Arthur's Legacy. The reason why this is mandatory is because of the +1 maximum companions, the +2 level of minion skills, and the melee attack speed. This is just a perfect item for us. There's almost nothing better in the game for a particular Crowstorm the way we have set this up. Also the mandatory unique of Cleaver Solution. This allows us to turn strength also into intelligence. And intelligence allows us to also have a wonderful amount of ward scaling, but also buffs our minions, because a lot of people don't know that the minions that you summon, they cast Lightning Blast, and Lightning Blast scales with lightning, so their auto attack becomes better the more intelligence you have, while also buffing themselves with things like Scheme of the Architect, which is very, very good. So intelligence just scales everything. It scales our defenses, it scales our offenses. It's just wonderful. Wall of Nothing is a new unique that makes us super, super tanky. The way that our endurance threshold can be added at ward decay threshold gives us a guaranteed high level of ward, especially with all that ward regen we have. So we have a massive hit pool that we have to survive with, and that we can survive with, while also having, as you can see, a chance to take no damage at all and a bunch of armor. It's incredible. It's a wonderful chest piece that is definitely recommended. We also have a Bastion of Honor. You could go with any kind of regular shield as long as it has a nice all-res on it, but this is the Aspirational shield because we are strength stacking, and having a max out block chance per strength is pretty much incredible, while getting additional strength on the Bastion of Honor, since we are strength stacking, health gain on block, mana, it is very comfy. But any shield will do as long as it has resistances on it. But yeah, Bastion of Honor, really good for this build. You could also go with a regular ring, because we do have opal rings for increased cooldown recovery and attributes, which are going to make our skills feel a lot smoother. However, the aspirational ring, of course, is Red Ring of Atlaria. Gives us a bunch of attributes, a bunch of all res, bunch of health regen. I don't have to explain to you why that is incredible by itself. And then on top of that, since we are stat stacking, we also get, as you can see, DR on top of that, which is incredible. And we want 2 of those in a perfect world. But yeah, if you can't afford that, if you don't have them yet, opal rings are the prior way to do that. Predatorian Belt. This is just nice. Just nice. That's minion damage, minion health, increased health. Of course, in a perfect world, you could opt for an experimental mod as well. Maybe you want to get like a sealed in resistances. Normally, I would seal in the cleanse with... oh, hold on. The cleanse one. But I don't think it's necessary because we already have 2 sources of cleanse on this build through Warcry and the jumping, right? The Fury Leap. So you could do whatever seal you want to do here. Maybe you want to get some armor. Maybe you want to get some resistances. You can do that. But this would be the ideal version. We have Eternal Gauntlets, as you can see. Strength, health regen, life. Those are the primary scalars of ourselves, including a little bit of minion health. You can also opt for attack speed if you want even more. But more importantly, we also have additional armor mitigation applies to damage over time, which is very, very potent. Now, we have the boots right here. We have strength, movement speed, health, and increased cooldown recovery. You do want to have a good cooldown recovery on your gear somewhere. You might even prioritize tier 7 cooldown recovery over tier 7 strength if you feel particularly comfy. But other than that, if you can help it, try to get as high possible minion teleport, because that allows you to also save your minions if they stand in like one-shot nukes, which is very good because you just Fury Leap on a low cooldown and your minions will follow you with the teleport, which also allows you to have a smoother experience ultimately in monoliths. You could also opt for the haste one if you just want to smooth yourself out and just kind of constantly be rushing, which means you never have to wonder if you want to spec into Hawkwings as well. So you have some options there, but I prefer the minion teleport. And then, of course, the mandatory unique for this particular version of the EHP build, Vessel of Strife. Health regen also applies to ward is the key node right here, as well as the ward retention, and that's pretty much it. Those are the only 2 things that matter on this particular vessel, because they allow us to turn all that extra health regen we're getting into ward, which gives us a massive amount of hit points to work with. So even though we're looking at 3k health, it's going to be far, far greater in the end because of the Vessel of Strife. And we have double sources of regen at the same time, both health and ward. All those DRs. We have all the healing from our abilities and leech. We also have freezing. We have block, health gained on block. We have mitigation from the Wall of Nothing. As you can see, we are going to be very difficult to kill, and we are going to nuke for incredible amounts of damage. On single targets, I'm already seeing like 100 to 200k crits with pretty much scuffed gear. So that's going to be scaling up incredibly well. So hopefully we're going to go all the way with this. Check out the progress. I will post any kind of video updates on this channel, as this is going to be my final build project of the cycle, because a lot of things are going to happen very shortly from now, and that's going to get very crazy. So until then, thank you so much for watching. Have a good rest of the evening. Hit that like button, and I will catch you guys next time. I'm out.